Hello to you all. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. Welcome along to another live Instagram interview. Hopefully, we've got some people there. If you're watching, then please feel free to give your country a shout out. Tell us what you're driving, and as always, post up any questions, and we'll do our best to cover those. If you've not tuned in before, then please also check out our previous interviews on IGTV. They're also on Facebook and YouTube. And we've had some amazing guests in the past year, and I think you'll enjoy many of those too. Oh, good afternoon, sir.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, we're good, thank you. Just doing a quick intro, and then we'll be over to you.
Yeah, crack on.
My name's Andy. I've worked at Heritage Parts Centre for 13 years. And my job involves meeting people, sharing stories about their vehicles and their businesses, and just our hobby in general, basically. So, joining us today is a guy who's built an automotive mecca in the Cotswolds, not to mention an amazing brand that appeals to motorists, young and old. There's more to this story, though, than a big car park and burgers and beer, so strap yourself in. We're going to chat Caffeine and Machine with Phil McGovern. Hello, sir.
Crikey, built that one up. Okay, hello, how are you?
Yes, welcome along. Before we dive kind of headfirst into Caffeine Machine, I think it'd be great to chat about your connection with Volkswagens and Porsches, seeing as that's kind of what we do, really. So my first question is, what was your first car and what have you got parked in the garage?
Okay, so, the VW thing was almost an impasse, right? It was going to be MG Midget or it was going to be VW Beetle. And I was very graciously bought a VW Beetle for my 17th birthday. So it was a 72. It had a front and rear balance conversion, and it had a wing conversion. So it was a bit of a hodgepodge of a thing. It was original pale blue on the inside, and it had been painted kind of like a Porsche aqua blue on the outside.
Okay.
And it was running on center lines, and it was ace. I loved it to pieces, and I banged around in that for and tore it apart terribly. And had it painted white and had the rear end lifted and changed the tyres around to make it look a bit more Cal Looker.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun, but it was a box. It was a bit of a shit box, but it was fun. And that was the beginnings of my VW thing. But for me, it was always Cal Look VW stuff, always. And that was just a natural progression that I had that desire to make my way up into Porsches.
Cool.
So it started with a gnarly bug, and then there was a number of Beetles and a couple of vans and a couple of other bits and bobs along the way.
So, what have you got in the garage now? You got a Porsche behind you? That's actually outside.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to live in a place where I can park a car and I can see it out the lounge window, which is amazing. That's the super long-term love affair. That's a car that's, I don't know, it's a long time that's been around now. It's a 68 912.
Okay.
There you go. So it's blood orange as its original color. And it's an absolute peach. It's a darling of a car.
Is it a US car or?
It is, yeah. I've taken the reflectors off because they're terrible. And I've detrimmed it.
Yeah.
Those side sill trims have come off, bumper trims have come off, fog light that were on it have come off, and did kind of like a mild outlaw, but it was predominantly driven around stance, wheels, and a really nicely detailed engine bay. Nothing performance related in that thing at all, other than an exhaust.
Cool. So, I believe you've done a bit of VW drag racing as well. Is that right?
I used to knob around and run what you brung. I never did competitively, but it was the first thing. So there was a 56 oval that we had years and years ago, and it had a VW Speed Shop 1955cc motor in it, and it was a lot of fun. And that was my start really with going to the drag strip, because it was just part and parcel of why we built the car. And then that kind of dribbled onto a 63 Cal Looker that was just awesome and super fast, but it didn't hang around in my life that long. But yeah, that car was the fastest I ever ran, and it was a 12-second car, and it was ace. I hope it's still around. I believe it is.
Fantastic. And kind of drag racing against circuits, have you got kind of an affinity to drag racing, or not particularly?
I like it, don't get me wrong. Circuit racing's absolutely where it's at for me now. You know, I always had an affinity with circuit racing. I just think drag racing was part of what I found interesting about cars when I was at that age. The minute that I transgressed across from VWs into Porsches, circuit racing became the thing that I was intrigued by. And I moved to the Middle East in early 2006. I went back as an adult, and the desire to get back into circuit racing burned really strong then.
Yeah.
Even though drag racing culture was significantly bigger. I don't know, there's a bit more of there's an instant thrill to drag racing, don't get me wrong, and there's a skill to getting those cars to, I mean, the guys that are running the big times, it's hairy. There's something more, I don't know, there's something more strategy driven about circuit racing that I find interesting, just in terms of the long play. But yeah, it's a game that's too expensive to get involved with. So,
was there much of a VW scene out there when you went out there?
It was the beginning of what Caffeine and Machine is. Yeah, I mean, there was a guy called Max Morley out there. There was a guy called Tom Jones, both kind of people that are well known within the VW culture. They moved out. There was a deep rooted scene there, but it was so deeply hidden. And the first kind of Caffeine and Machine event that I was kind of inspired to do was wrapped around VWs and trying to pull these VWs out of the woodwork. And we had an amazing spread, you know, a mega spread. There was all sorts out there, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And there's an Arabic gentleman, local UAE guy, that's been at the head of it the entire time, pulling it along. So yeah, it's there for sure, and growing massively. It's cool.
Oh, fantastic. Is there a certain emotion you want to get when driving a car? And the other question is, have you got a boring daily? And if so, how boring is it?
Should we tackle the daily?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, I've always liked quirky dailies. I'm currently in a CLS 500.
Okay.
Which I think's ace. It's just like a massive rolling armchair that looks a little bit like if you squint, it looks a little bit like a mid-50s hot rod in my head. It's like a modern interpretation of a 50s hot rod. It's got this incredible, I just love the profile of it. It's an awesome looking thing.
I'm not a Mercedes man. Are they ridiculous engine, like 5 litres or something like that? With
yeah.
V8 or whatever?
Yeah, it's not the best on the economy. I don't know, man. I've worked out that if I feather it versus if I just drive it normally, the variance is tiny. So yeah, I'm doing 23, 24 to the gallon. I've got to push. But I don't know. When you buy a car that's 15 years old and I think it was a 70. I had the original invoice. I think it's about a £78,000 car, new, right? And this thing was 6.
It's a lot of car.
It's a lot of car, and its depreciation curve's gone. It's going to sit around 6 until, you know, I put probably another 40,000 miles on it, and it'll still be worth 6. You can write off the mileage a little bit to some extent. And I totter in and around of, you know, my bus and that. So yeah, it kind of ebbs and flows and eases away. It eases its way through. But yeah, the CLS is ace. And to answer your other question, every car, to some extent, if it's a cool car and it's got an interesting vibe, it doesn't matter whether it's shit or it's dynamically wonderful. You know, there's some experiences that I've had in cars, and they are the most terrible cars to drive. but it's all about the landscape, the experience, the weather, the people that you're with. Yeah, it's at the core of it is that. But I love a car that you can hustle down an A road or a B road, you know, like everybody does. You know, if it's set up great and it's a dynamic feeling thing and it's sonorous and it sings to you as you're ripping through the gears and it feels mechanical. Yeah, very much like that. Albeit the irony of my love affair with my CLS, because it just feels like a rolling armchair. kind of says it all, right? I love my rolling armchair. It's great. But I also love the fact that when I'm in that under load, I can't hear anything. You know, it feels like you're on a motorbike with a helmet on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, full throttle in a car that's not got much sound deadening, that's on carbs, and you know, it's got not really much muffler going on. That's a special experience, right?
Yeah, I don't think it matters whether you're doing 40 or kind of 100 or whatever. Like, it's you and the car, and you're kind of there in the moment. It's obviously when the Vauxhall Astra comes past you at 70 miles an hour, and you're still kind of just humming along. But at that moment where it's you and the car.
I've had that twice. This car is the antithesis of that. You know, you can be absolutely full chat, top of third gear, and you're still doing 65.
Yeah.
But it just sounds amazing, and it's just everything's talking to you. The car is just alive, but you're slow. The other car that I had that experience with was Toyota 86, and to your exact point, there was this great big sweeping corner that led into where I lived in Dubai, and I was going around this corner. I tipped it in. It was fab. I was feeling like king of the world, and a Camry taxi came round the side of me because, you know, it just was not a fast car.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful.
You were having more fun, I swear.
Yeah. I don't know whether the passenger in the back of the taxi was having a load of fun, but yeah, I was absolutely.
So, go back to your childhood. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
A pilot.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of screwed with that. I had an absolute love affair with planes. So yeah, pilot, and then racing car driver probably. And I still harbour that ambition today. So still haven't grown up.
I wouldn't. I think it's overrated, isn't it? From what I hear. Try my best not to.
Yeah, don't. You just have to stop looking at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, if you don't read the news, everything's great, isn't it? So yeah, if you don't look in the mirror, you're still 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Before Caffeine Machine came along, you had a website I think called Crank and Piston.
Yeah.
And so you kind of touched on this a little bit. What was the inspiration for that? And then on the back of that, I think there was a story about an XJ220 in Qatar, which sort of landed you in slightly warm water with your employer. If we can kind of talk about that as well.
Sure. Yeah, website was, I, like you and like many other people, probably spent a lot of money on magazines back in those days. And to fulfill my weird kind of like list of perversions, it was a myriad of stuff, from kind of Hot Rodders Journal to Hot VWs to Evo to Top Gear, to kind of like the indie magazines. There was all sorts of stuff that I was buying, to Autosport, Motorsport, Racer. It was deep. And I was.
Are you a hoarder?
Do
you keep all your magazines, or are you able to throw them away every month?
I keep some interesting magazines that mean something to me. Yeah. So
yeah,
they're on my shelf. That just off to the right here. Yeah, I do keep some here and there. I don't have 5 years of Vauxhall magazines anymore, albeit I did.
I think everyone did.
Yeah. They've long since gone, sadly. But yeah, I found myself living in a set of countries. It gets really easily confused, the Middle East, because it's as culturally diverse a landscape as Europe is. It just changes every country you go to. But at the core of it, there was some really cool culture, there was some really cool cars, and there was some amazing stuff going on. And I was working for Jaguar cars, kind of Jaguar, Volvo, Ford at the time, less so Land Rover. And I was going to these countries, and I had a camera. I loved photography. It was kind of my jam. And I wanted to express myself with my photography and get it somewhere. So I started a website.
Okay.
And yeah, Crank and Piston, it was built on a Drupal website back then. It was super old school, super basic, and it was nothing more than a place where I could put my content. And yeah, it grew, and it kind of, it grew and it grew and it grew. It was really bizarre. And it was because I think I was talking a language and focusing in on a region that no one had ever spoken out from.
Yeah.
You know, lots of people had visited the Middle East and gone, oh, this is really interesting. But no one had ever talked about what's going on the ground. And, you know, yes, you see a proliferation of supercars. You never see the custom hot rod builds. You never see the really interesting, you know, domestic market trends, which are all focused around off-roading, or they're all focused around hill climb. You know, Lebanon, Beirut, Syria, that Levant region, the hill climbing culture's bonkers. And then you go into kind of like Kuwait and Qatar and Bahrain, and it's all about drag racing. And you know, the fiercely competitive US domestic market product up again. You know, it's same as what happens in Japan and what happens in the US. They're just as competitive, just as fast, and the tracks are prepped just as well. You never hear about it. And you never hear about hill climbing up sand dunes and, you know, flatland sand drags over 90 meters. Just like you don't hear about tractor pulling in the UK. It's thin level
I guess
stuff,
so.
but it's there and it's cool and it filters up. And that's what Crank and Piston was. Yeah, that. Good memories.
And
oh yeah,
abandoned Jaguars.
Okay, so this was when Crank and Piston was still an indie project. So I was working at Jaguar Cars, which was then Jaguar Land Rover. I was working in regional sales. So my job was to travel around a certain catchment of Middle East, North Africa and Pakistan and ensure that dealers did what they should be doing from a sales perspective.
Yeah.
And within that, obviously, I met a lot of interesting people. One of the guys, I'm going to leave him nameless for a bit, but he was a super cool dude, very talented fella that was working in Qatar. And he knew I had a thing for XJ220s. He knew I had a Crank and Piston thing going because we used to talk and meet when I flew into Qatar. And one afternoon, he sent me a bunch of photos of this car. And it was the blue one that then subsequently popped up all over the internet. And the story was all backdated to his previous role in Beirut, where he was working at the Jaguar dealer over there. And this particular blue XJ220 had been over there. And was in rude health. It was lovely. It looked great. It was running great. All that sort of stuff. Fast forward 18 months later, there it is, sat on the side of the road in Doha, looking horrific. You know, it had been dropped on a 4-post lift. It had its wing mirrors knocked off. It hadn't been serviced. The bag tanks had turned to sand. It was really bad.
I've seen the photos of it. It's horrendous.
Yeah, you know, it was a little bit more horrendous than just the dust, but yeah, it just because the dust masqueraded the photo. And at the time, I didn't consider how relevant that was. But a lot of these kind of like abandoned supercar stories that you see coming out of the Middle East, they're not abandoned. You know, you leave your car on the street in the UK overnight and it rains, you wake up to a wet car. You leave your car on the street overnight in the Middle East and a sandstorm comes through, you wake up to an abandoned car.
Yeah, that's what I say.
You know, and it's not as significant a visual as you expect. So yes, the car was dusty, but it was gnarly. And I wrote this story about the fact that it was semi-abandoned, and off it went, and it got syndicated by all sorts of people. I think I woke up to a website that had collapsed. And then I woke up to the next day was a load of emails. I think Speed Hunters took it, Jalopnik took it, Autoblog took it, Top Gear were on the phone, Autocar were on the phone.
Wow.
It kind of put Crank and Piston on the map. That day, it was like smash, and the photos had the stamp on it. And then that afternoon, I was offered a choice. It was as simple as that by a guy that, you know, I look back and thank, obviously, for the choice that he offered me, because I'd been talking about going full time with Crank and Piston for a long time, and it's all chat. For a lot of people, it's all chat until someone takes you to the edge of the cliff face and goes, "You can go if you want."
Do
it. You know, I can tell it's going to work. You need to prove to yourself. Go do it. So yeah, I was offered the opportunity to leave Jaguar Cars, and amazingly, the same gentleman then invited me back very quickly afterwards because all car manufacturers and brands globally were all going through digital revolutions. And I'd been scrabbling around in my bedroom learning it, and yeah, proven a model that worked in a specific realm, which was crank and piston. And then I was asked to deploy it to Jaguar Land Rover.
Oh wow!
That was how my kind of digital agency grew. It all started with these kind of cultured running around blogging about life in the Middle East. Yeah,
Amazing.
so yeah,
So,
XA220 got me in hot water. It was shit or bust, swim now kind of thing. Yeah.
So for those of us who are yet to visit, or perhaps haven't heard of C&M before today, what is Caffeine and Machine all about?
It's the learning of everything that we've just really been talking about. It was designed to be this a place for like-minded people to hang out, and you know, a dysfunctional community centre for a bunch of people that were just absolutely harboured and passionate for the automotive world. And I just found that it had never been catered for to the level that I wanted it to be catered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd done a lot of, I'd had the fortune of a lot of travel to a lot of very interesting places with my work, with the agency kind of content stuff. And I never found what I was really looking for. I found some amazing things, some wicked events and some amazing brands that were running as pop-ups, and, you know, street meets and the big kind of like Malibu supercar meets and these kind of clubhouse meets that were going on in the Middle East. And there was all sorts of stuff going on. So I got on that train just to see what it was all about. But the idea was never to just continue with pop-ups. It was always to build this bricks and mortar facility. So it was testing and understanding how that would work, and then committing to making it happen so that people had a place to call home. And then yeah, I met my business partner Dan in a very stressful environment in the Middle East, and all we could ever talk about was Caffeine and Machine. And we had
Did you have a name for it then?
You what? Sorry?
You had a name for it at that point before?
Yeah. So yeah, in the death of, without boring you with the other side of all of the stories, with the death of Crank and Piston and my involvement with it and all of that sort of stuff, the desire to do something again came. And within those Crank and Piston days, the desire for a cafe was always in there. It was just going to be it would have looked so different. It would have been cheesy. It would have been terrible. Yeah, it would have had like Hot Wheels cars stuck to the ceiling. It would have just been wrong. And yeah, so the push to do something to spark my creativity happened, and it happened when I met a gentleman called Mortaza and his wife Nikki in Dubai that run a place called Cafe Rider. And it was a cafe roastery. I was just starting to get into the nerdy side of coffee at the time. I was riding a motorbike to work every day, and I used to stop there every single morning, and I'd have like a piccololo and a pour over and smoke too many cigarettes in the early morning sunshine in Dubai, and then go to work. And I kept thinking every morning how cool it would be to build something like this for cars, because I know that bike places, they never really cross-pollinate. You know, Ace Cafe is probably the only one that ever really successfully cross-pollinated. You know, Deus kind of nudges it, but it does it through art and culture. But it's, you know, it's at the core of it is a bike place. So I asked Mortaza if I could put an event on, and on the Friday of the event, it was called Caffeine and Gasoline.
Okay.
And then on the Saturday of the event, I woke up in the morning and went, "That's a terrible name. Like, what about Caffeine and Machine? I wonder if that's available. I wonder if that works." And I wrote it down and I looked at it and I went on GoDaddy and I was like, "Oh my God, caffeineandmachine.com's available." It's like on the Saturday, it's called Caffeine and Machine. So yeah, the first event was Caffeine and Machine, and it was held at Cafe Rider in Dubai, and it was fun. We spread it over 5 decades, and presented a car to match the decades, and just invited a load of people down.
Cool.
And that was the first event. But the desire always was to create a building. We just didn't know what it would look like, where it would be, and then under big stress and, you know, a big move out of the Middle East and into the UK with this nothing but 16-page creative business plan. We opened Caffeine and Machine. Yeah, it was nuts, wild, and it still is to this day. Crazy.
So I gather, obviously, what you've got now was it an old pub? Is that right?
Yeah, it was. It was a. I'm going to get it. I get it wrong every time. I believe it was a dower house. Someone will correct me. Or is it dower or dowry house?
Okay.
For the Shirley family, affiliated to a big place just over the road from us, which is now a great kind of like Gothic mansion.
Wow.
So it was the mother to the heir of the seat to the house that lived in this property, and then the Hounds Hill, as it became better known, was turned into like a roadhouse pub about 60, 70 years ago. And then, yeah, we took it on after it was the Hounds Hill as a pub, stroke B&B restaurant with a lot of outbuildings that we've yet to unlock the potential of, but they're there. So yeah, it was an old pub, and it's dysfunctional and massive and yeah, useless when we want it to be useful, and useful when we don't need it. It's a weird place, and it's become our home. We love it.
So yeah, what drew you to the Cotswolds in particular, and how close did you get to setting up somewhere else?
Yeah, it went all over the place. It could have been in like 5 locations in Dubai.
Wow.
We got very close to putting it in what was the redeveloped Port Rashid, which for anyone that's come into Dubai or taken off out of Dubai is the port that you come in over the top of, where the QE2 is. We looked quite closely at that. I looked very closely at Washington State in America, because I just love it. But I couldn't get my dad over there, because just the way that the rulings work and the way that the visa-based systems work. And then, yeah, England. It was always going to be around here. It had to be, just because of the way that the automotive and motorcycle culture grew out of the UK.
Yeah.
So as a pinpoint spot on the map, it had to be. Racetracks, race teams, manufacturers, and then all the supply chain that dovetails into that. I just thought that would be the best place to drop it. And then it gave us an opportunity to look further afield if we ever got to a position where we could afford to do it. Go north, go south, maybe cross some water, see where the dreams take us, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just follow them. So
yeah.
You put on kind of different nights and different kind of events. What sort of events have you got which you run, which sort of maybe appeal to our customers, I guess, sort of Volkswagen, Porsche people? Have you got anything specific which is...
It's always going to happen because of me. It's a bit like Jack, our head car park marshal's like this Mark II Golf nerd, and you can always tell what's going on when Jack's in the yard, because you can just see these really lovely kind of like early 90s Golfs rolling around. For me, yes, air-cooled nights. We put one on the 4th Wednesday of every month, and it's from 5 o'clock. We do it as a ticket-only activation, and it's a lot of fun. We get a really broad spread, and that runs through until 10 o'clock at night. And then the idea that myself and Dan and Kate, who's in our marketing team, actually she is the marketing team, we're looking at doing, hopefully, fingers crossed, something later on in the year that might include sleeping out.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's kind of the way that the air-cooled is catered for. But then in general, it's always been, wide open for all. We kind of stylize certain things and we present certain things, but in general, whatever you drive as your vector, you're coming to C&M for more reasons than maybe a car park full of air-cooled cars. It's more the vibe, the feeling, the afternoon that you want to enjoy. If you're rolling around in your VW, come on down. It's not a case of you're never in, you're never wanted. It's you're wanted there all the time. There's just specific slots that we're trying to now build to cater for these very tight genres, which is air-cooled. It's tight, right?
Yeah. Sounds good. So yeah. The brand image for C&M seems to have kind of had a massive part in making your project a kind of a success? Is that something you kind of done yourself, or have you got kind of a team? You mentioned, I think, Kate in your marketing team.
Yeah, we got some mega cool talented people that have hovered around. There's a gentleman called Lee. Lee's been around for a long time. Lee's been with me since like Crank and Piston days. Lee helped formulate the look and the feel of the core brand. So that's the one that you don't see changing graphically, the one that sits on top of our building. And then many years ago, in the press paddock of the Dubai 24 Hours, I met this absolutely batshit bonkers guy called Jake Yorath. And Jake has grown into a very talented and interesting and very frustrating, because we have this hilarious relationship where he's crazy creative and very talented and very onerous of his creative decision, whereas I'm exactly the same. So we have this really lovely relationship, and it ends up spurning really cool stuff which Jake creates. You know, we debate. Dan and I sit and debate, put Jake under a lot of pressure to create magic, and he does. So yeah, Jake does the graphic line work for us, the event line graphics that we use for all of the activations that we do, and the majority of our clothing line is driven from Jake too. So yeah,
well done, Jake.
Yeah, well done, Jake.
Someone's asked if you've got an SP2 in the background. It's a Porsche I'm on too, but yeah, I can see where you're going with it from that kind of angle.
Yeah. Normal too. SP2 would be very cool. Would do, maybe one day.
Yeah. So we're chatting, obviously today, it's late March 2021. The country's been under lockdown restrictions since Christmas. Have you been, I guess you've been closed since Christmas?
Yeah, we have. It's not been easy. What Dan and I were talking about this the other day, it's basically half of the year we've been shut. Yeah, we reopened on the 11th of July. We ran it all the way through until that point where it got really grey and it got really muddy, which was kind of don't go out, but don't shut. You can do takeaway, so long as it works for your business, and so long as you don't have people hanging around in habitually used areas. It just didn't work. So yeah, we've been shut since that grey area where you were told that you could do takeaways. And we've had this amazing layer of support when it comes to merchandise and clothing and stickers and keyrings, and it's kept us afloat, which has been wonderful. It's tough. I think if there was another month to go, we'd be really screwed. But thankfully we can swing the doors open on the 12th of April, which is ace. So yeah, 9 AM 12th of April we start.
So is that kind of ticketed from then on, or can people rock up from then? And
no, you can rock up. So it's thanks for asking, because it's one of the things that we really struggle to communicate straight, because it's the last 2 years has been it's changed and it's ebbed and it's flowed. So the way that it works is during any given weekday, you're free to come along. The ticketed events that we do is based on the volume concern. And we're sticking to that because it makes our business easier to manage. But if you cast your mind all the way back to lockdown, when we reopened, we were doing 50 cars every 2.5 hours. We're going to do that up to 120. We can give everybody somewhere to sit. We've now got app order. It's no queues. It's your vibe. It's your zone. It's nice and easy. So we do that on a Monday night, first Monday of every month, ticket only event called I Love You Man, which is Men's Mental Health Night, which is really cool, very much like this, but on a sofa in front of a bunch of people.
Cool.
And then every Wednesday night we do those things like I spoke about, the air-cooled night, but we do a German night, we do a Japanese night, we do an air-cooled night, we do a front-wheel drive kind of hot hatch night, and then weekends are ticketed until the evening. And then what we're doing on relaunch in the evenings is from 7 o'clock. It's unticketed. You can come on down, and we're going to have food trucks in the yard, and we're going to keep that kind of party going until 10 o'clock on a Friday night, a Saturday night, a Sunday night. So it should be a lot of fun as the light evenings get better and better, and the weather gets warmer.
So is 10 o'clock a licensing thing, or is that you've had enough at 10 o'clock, or you?
You clever sausage! You picked up on that one. Yeah, we're a strange establishment in that we have caveats in the way that we have to operate. And these are a lot of the stresses and strains that we've gone through in the growth of Caffeine and Machine, and ensuring that we as a brand and as a business are as good as we can be to our local community.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a fair. We run events at work and we kind of cap them off at 9. It's not a licensing thing, but I think otherwise you could still be there at midnight and
I mean,
they might go home, but you've got to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly that. Yes, there's a long play here, right? And you know, if I can ensure that my neighbours are looked after as best as they possibly can, because we're dispersing at a sociable time. In the grand scheme of things, 10 o'clock is sociable. Yeah, that's what we do. So yeah, 10 o'clock, sadly.
Cool. So
good,
I was reading online, and I was kind of intrigued really to see your support of startup businesses and younger enthusiasts in an article in Autocar online, and basically with reference to String Theory Garage, which I think is in one of the workshops at the back.
Yeah, it was.
Is he no longer there?
Good story. No. This is a good story. So yeah.
There's a thing kind of on the back of that. So did you receive kind of a similar leg up in your career, or kind of what inspires it really? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's pay it forward, isn't it? And I've been given opportunities left, right, and centre as I've gone, and I don't know whether they were engineered by me or it was kind of a perfect meeting of minds in certain circumstances or relationships that I had. But there was always this friendly hand. You know, it's omnipresent with my parents. It's very much omnipresent with my father. There's this consistent arm of help if it's needed. And I just felt it was right to do it to someone that had something as cool as the talent that Ben has, right? And we had this room, we had this opportunity to allow him to start his business and see how it worked within the framework of Caffeine and Machine. And that business was String Theory, which was a suspension and geo shop. And you know, Ben's very talented. He knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to the way that a car goes down the road. And he set up a boutique string aligned based business. Fast forward to lockdown 1. It was very obvious that he needed to expand and he needed to get out of Caffeine and Machine. You know, he had 15 cars outside of one bay garage workshop. And it was like, Ben, you need to commit to this, man, and go. So yeah, he has, and he's taken a facility on in Stratford upon Avon. So yeah, he's growing, which is ace.
So have you got kind of another young gun lined up for you? The Prodigy garage, or whatever it might be.
I'm thinking about it. I don't know how to deploy it. You know, any idea is welcome, really. You know,
if anyone's watching and you need a leg up, give a shout.
There's always things that we're intrigued to do. You know, I still want to do coffee roasting. We still want to look at gin distilling. You know, I think there's a part of Caffeine and Machine that needs something artisan floating around in the background. You know, Ben's stuff was art. It doesn't have to be that. It could be photography. It could be something, as long as it's got the ability to create a commercial model. Yeah. Intrigued. Cool.
No, I like that. I think it's really important to kind of be kind in general, but if you've got the opportunity, then help people out. When I do these talks, I kind of like to talk about what inspired people to get kind of into stuff. I kind of go back to when I was at school. I was into cars, and you go to your careers advisor, and they tell you if you're into cars, you can sell cars, or you can paint cars, or you can fix cars, and that's it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, let's talk to people who are sort of to the left or to the right of that, and inspire people to.
I love that bit, and it's the content, and it's the art, and it's the storytelling. You know, I'm always intrigued by that. The photographers that float through our place. You know, there's so much. There's a way we sit in the middle of a bunch of people that can do, and a bunch of people that need. And it's just kind of connecting dots to, and that again is another thing that Caffeine and Machine brings, and it's another thing I remember at Cafe Rider was this. It's just a meeting of interesting, creative people, and also a bunch of interesting people that need creatives. It's like, guys, just talk to each other over this common bond that is that, you know, DBR over there in the corner that you have never seen before, and do it whilst having a nice coffee, you know.
Perfect. So your website clearly states that C&M can't be exclusively hired by kind of someone, but you've done some pretty cool collaboration stuff with big players like I think Audi and Lotus. So that's got to feel pretty cool. Do those calls come into you, or do you kind of whiz out an email, just I'm here if you need us?
It started with the work that was done right at the beginning, and there was a lot of work that was done by a guy called Tom Ford, and there's a lot of work that was, you know, I'd been in the industry a long time, so there was a lot of connections through that started to hear about it. So a lot of it was business development. It was hustle. You know, Tom did a lot of hustle, and then we got in the right place with PR and press work that was going on, and then the brands started calling. You know, some of them we met through journos. Some of them we met just by virtue of or by proxy of the fact they turned up, and you know, turned up on a weekend to enjoy it. And it's been ace. Yes, we've done some amazing things. You know, there's been some fun with Lotus. There's been some fun. Actually, there's a lot of fun with Lotus. But it was always done with the right intentions. And you're right, you can't exclusively hire C&M. The only brand that ever has exclusively hired C&M is, as of actually up until today, is Lotus.
Okay.
And that was done purely on account of lockdown. So we chose, I think lockdown restrictions lifted on something like the 4th of July, and we chose to open up on the 11th of July so that we could get our ducks in order and we could see what was going on. And on the final 2 days of that week, Lotus had the place to themselves. They're the only people that have ever had it to themselves. The rest of it has to be a moving thing in my mind. You know, these brands are a product and they're talking to a market. That market, in whatever percentage, is in the yard. Yeah. So let them see it, and they might not even be on your radar. So come and be involving.
Yeah, you're talking to someone else's audience, not just your own audience. Then makes sense.
It's a strong thing, and that might work for some, and it might not work for others, and that's totally cool, because it was all part of a funnel, and it was all meant to, you know, everyone was supposed to have access to C&M at some level, be it you know, personal, individual, all the way up to multinational brand. Everybody could have a piece of it. It's just how it worked.
Cool. If I could give you, so I like hypothetical questions. If I could give you a hypothetical weekend off, and I imagine you probably don't get many, and a time machine on loan from Doctor Who, what automotive event from the past would you go to? Who would you take? And what souvenir would you bring back to remember it by?
Okay. Can I go back to a time rather than
I guess so.
an event? So I would love to have this kind of like hypothetical vibe where I come out of my house in California in my massive station wagon, and I'll have my girlfriend by my side, Laura, and I'm cruising to Lyons Dragway, and I'm probably picking up a burger and a milkshake on the way home, and maybe doing some longboarding down the coast. That would be a night out, I reckon, to go and watch night drag racing for sure. But then it's everything else that's bolted into it, isn't it? It's the skating, it's the milkshake, it's the burger, it's the bench seat and a girl with a head on your shoulders. All of it. That.
One of them, please.
Yeah, please. Strike it off. I'll take it.
Have you got any interest in opening another automotive destination? And would it be a carbon copy with regards to what you've got, or is there things you'd do differently, maybe with regard to ethos or anything like that, if you went somewhere else?
I suppose it depends on. I think, yeah, in my head, I've got a mind map that takes it all over God's half acre, right? It goes bloosh. I think if you were to look at the actual real way that this could grow, to answer your first question, yes, I'd very much like to. Dan and I would very much like to. It's part of our plan.
Yeah.
It would probably strategically tick very similar requirements. I think culturally it would pull from the environment it's in.
Yeah.
you know, it's probably harder to split it when you look at a UK market. It's probably easier to split if you look on a global playing field. You know, a Caffeine and Machine in Q8 would look very different to a Caffeine and Machine in California. Just like, to some extent, a Caffeine and Machine in Stratford upon Avon will look different to a Caffeine and Machine that might be 2.5 hours, 3 hours north. You're gonna nudge into a very different set of architectural circumstances, and you're gonna nudge into a very different set of economic circumstances. So it will have to ebb and flow the cult of machine as it is presented. That is kind of what is in our head, is it will pull, but the core elements will be the same. It'll be the yard, it'll be cool people, easygoing food that's great, and great coffee, and the rooms and the experiences.
You've got rooms there. Is it kind of B&B type of setup you've got?
Yeah, we do. We've got 7 really, really lovely rooms, and you know, if you the rooms at Ace, I say that, you know, I would say they're Ace. Of course I would, but they were terrible when we got the building, and I've had the pleasure of staying in all the rooms, and they are lovely. But it's a growing thing that we're slowly working on. It's not many people knew about them, and again, you know, big building, load of facilities, not making the use of them that we probably should. So there's a bit of work that we want to do on that side of things to create a higher level of stays. But at the moment, it's, you know, weekends are great. The midweek activations are great. It's now tapping into the local businesses and all of those people that are ebbing and flowing that are currently staying at a Holiday Inn. You know, if you're an Aston engineer or a JLR engineer, or you work for a Formula One team or a BTCC team or Triumph, or, you know, you can stay at us. Or if you're going to the NEC or you're going to Stoneleigh, that's what we're trying to do, is just be kind of sat in there. You know, we didn't historically want to go on booking.com or anywhere like that. We wanted to be available to the petrol heads, so that when you're sat at the bar at night, there's someone there that's wildly cool that you know about, that you can all of a sudden have a beer with.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, lastly, another hypothetical, really, if you could choose between 5 famous cars or 5 famous people who'd rock up for a day at C&M for free and be completely at your disposal, which would you pick? And have you got a wish list?
People, because I'd no idea what they'd come in. I think I'd go for the people.
Okay. And any particular people you'd be like, yeah, I'd love, I guess we could do Dead or Alive. I'd love Ayrton Senna to rock up, or...
yeah, I like the guys that have you know, the cogs that sit in these massive machines that are the absolute linchpin key to the success of everything. Yeah, and that person might be right at the top, someone like Toto Wolff.
Yeah,
you know, he's very clearly sitting up there and making that happen. All the way down to the guy that like created the flat plane crank, or did something magic when it comes to a traction control system, or a safety device system, or an air, you know, the creator of the airbag. Yeah. Probably a wild conversation, but it's that kind of stuff. You know, I love people like Ian Callum when they turn up to C&M as car designers, or because they're wonderfully creative and wonderfully opinionated, but wonderfully presented. These guys are great, and these women that are in the industry are great. It's the people that bring a car that doesn't really matter, because it's the vector, because every car is cool, and then it goes that way. Yeah, that.
Cool. Go for people. So yeah, that rounds up my kind of my questions, really. So yeah, massive thank you very much for joining me. I think it's been a really cool chat. So, enjoyed your answers.
Yeah, man, thank you very, very much.
And learning all about Caffeine and Machine, really. So yeah, for people out there who kind of want to follow Phil, then yeah, please look him up at Phil McGovern. And also while you're there, yeah, check out at Caffeine and Machine. And I think it's twice daily you post generally for Caffeine and Machine stuff.
On my social stuff, yeah. I do a morning shift and an evening shift. Yeah. Yeah. When yeah.
So that, and I think you'll also find links for booking tickets and kind of all your reopenings and all the rest, all off there as well.
Yeah, everything will, when we pull our finger out, everything will be across all of the channels that's needed, and it'll all be kind of like flowing through just as we run up to the 12th of April, and then we get our natural run rate. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the comments, guys. If anyone's out there be interested in chatting live with myself or Steph, then please drop us a DM. We can have a chat about getting you on. Massive thank you to everyone for watching. We're going to be saving this chat to our stories, our IGTV. We're also going to be republishing it onto Facebook and YouTube, so you can catch any bits you missed. Please give it a like, drop a comment, tag a mate who you think might enjoy it. We'll see you all again soon. Take care. Stay safe. Thank you very much, Phil. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Enjoy. Cheers.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.